Hi lovely booktubers, welcome back to my channel, Raina Read Stuff. I'm Debs. I'm here in the book shack. This channel is also known for this month only as Raina Wants It Rough, because it's GarbAugust. It's Sunday. I'm going to do my weekly reading wrap up, but I'm only going to do the GarbAugust stuff, and then tomorrow, like I did last week, I will do a short video on the other things I've read this week. So I've angled you peculiarly today so we can do the bingo board. Right, to start with, GarbAugust3D, the brainchild of Screaming Creaming Olly, better known as Criminolly, and his host of co-hosts, who I will list down below, has ventured into Instagram. So this week's Instagram prompt was a happy GarbAugust selfie. There's mine. I was reading The Assassin Manhattan Massacre by Peter McCurtin. Right, so I posted that. I am crossing off the Instagram prompt. This week, the weekly prompts: category romance or men's adventure. So, for men's adventure, I went with a book and also a film, because we're including films this time round. The book was The Dakota Cypher by William Dietrich. It's an Ethan Gage adventure. It's the third Ethan Gage adventure. There were references to the other two, and so I probably would recommend starting with the first, which I haven't read. I found this in a second-hand bookshop and just thought it looked fun. Ethan Gage is an American who has fought for the British against Napoleon and fought for Napoleon against the British, managing to keep both sides happy at the same time and also keep the Americans happy. We are in the earliest years of the 19th century. He heads back to America with a request from Napoleon to hold out an olive branch and establish links between Napoleon and the newly elected president, Thomas Jefferson. He's living it up a bit in New York when he is befriended by a giant of a Norwegian called Magnus Bloodaxe, Bloodhammer. Magnus Bloodhammer, descended from Vikings, also from royalty, who has a map from the Middle Ages, which seems to suggest that Norwegians and Vikings made their way not only to the coast of America a couple of hundred years before Columbus managed to do it, but they made their way to the interior of America, and there they hid an artifact. In fact, they hid Thor's hammer, and he wants Ethan Gage to go off and help him find it. It was published in 2009. Dietrich is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who then went into authorship, writing fiction and non-fiction. This is a rip-roaring adventure. It takes you across, up and around the America. We have mad Englishmen, we have mad English women, we have, he's a bit of a Lothario, he sleeps with Napoleon's sister and tries it with an English aristocrat sister and a Native American woman. He gambles. He exaggerates his stories, but he has a lot of adventures on the way. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was great fun. It was about 400 pages. I read it really quickly. Now, also for Men's Adventure, I decided that I hadn't watched any films so far during GarbAugust, so Phil and I, my husband, decided to watch The Expendables 4. We've seen the other 3 Expendables films. They are ridiculous. More people get blown up before the opening credits than in most action movies. But they're good fun. I mean, they're not, they're very tongue-in-cheek. And if you haven't seen any of them, they star Jason Statham and Sylvester Stallone with a whole host of other all-action heroes from films. So over the course of the 4 films, we have had Bruce Willis, and we've had Dolph Lundgren, we've had Arnold Schwarzenegger, we've had Jet Li, and I can't remember the guy who plays Texas Ranger, but he's been in it. Basically, they've trundled out all the actors who played heroes in action movies in the 80s and 90s and dumped them into this film. And then they're either good guys or bad guys, so either they die or they don't. This one had Andy Garcia in it, and 50 Cent and Megan Fox, and there's a lot of destruction, but they are adventurous and they're fun, so I enjoyed that. And then for category romance, which isn't one of my favourites, I have to confess, I read, can you see that? I read The Greek Wedding She Never Had by Chantelle. It's a Mills and Boon modern. It's about a woman who is left the running of the family's hotel business by her grandfather, despite the fact that she's the middle child. He obviously thinks her more capable. She falls for a Greek guy who sweeps her off her feet in Paris, and they agree to become engaged, whirlwind romance. But then she overhears him on the phone, and she finds out that he thinks her grandfather cheated his father out of half a share of the hotel that they'd set up together in Greece. And that's the only reason he's marrying her, so he can get his half share back. She leaves him, doesn't tell him why. They get back together again. No, they don't. They run into each other again a year later, by which time she's grown up a bit. Actually, I quite enjoyed this. I used to think Mills and Boon was all about simpering females and brooding men, but it's not anymore. The female characters are much stronger than they used to be. And, yeah, it wasn't too bad. So, let's cross off category romance and men's adventure. Now we get to the bingo board. One of the prompts is a co-host's recommendation. And I went with this one from Michelle at Michelle's Melancholia. The Meg by Steve Alten. This is Jaws meets Jurassic Park. Down in the depths of the Marianas Trench, a science sub accidentally brings to the surface a megalodon. In fact, two. They scare one that's male, and they manage to actually sort of drag it almost to the surface when all of a sudden a 60-foot female comes along, eats her partner, and ends up stranded in the warmer waters above the Mariana Trench. I haven't seen the film, but I love the book in the same way that I love Jaws. It was just a good, fun adventure. There's a Navy submersible pilot who was one of the first to spot the original Meg, and nobody believed him. Nobody believed that he'd seen anything at all. He tried to race to the... In fact, he did bring his sub up far too soon, and the two scientists on board the vessel died. He was then hounded out of the Navy and stuck in a mental institution for a number of months. And then began learning about this species and lecturing about them. So when one appears, when the female appears, he's brought in to try and solve the problem, and she is a problem. So that counts for host recommendation, and we cross that off. Let's go through these ones. I have to thank Roy at Roy Reads Anything, because he sent me half of these, and I'm very grateful. This is the one I was reading in my Instagram selfie, The Assassin Manhattan Massacre, Peter McCurtin. This is about Robert Briganti, who was a sharpshooter in a travelling carnival show until he met his wife. Oh, he also used to work for an arms dealer, a legitimate arms dealer. He then met his wife, settled back in her hometown, bought himself a sports shop, and life trundles on just nicely. Until a mafia boss turns up and says he wants him to supply him with guns. And Robert says, no, not doing it, just no. There's a bit of a scuffle. Robert more than holds his own. Mafia boss goes off, saying he'll regret it, comes back, or rather sends the heavies round. And as Robert, his wife, and his son are travelling home, Two gunmen open fire on the car. They kill his wife and they kill his son. And Robert turns into a vigilante. He wants them dead. The people who killed his son, he wants them dead. In fact, anyone who's connected with them, he wants them dead too. And this is how he manages to track down those responsible, plus a few others, while the FBI, the CIA, and the government and police are trying to catch him. And the mafia are trying to get rid of him as well, by any means possible. So this is a lone vigilante seeking retribution for the death of his wife and son. That's the vigilante book gone. I'm going to go through the physical books now. Georges Simenon, Maigret in Exile. I bought a load of these probably 2 months ago. I just found a set of them in a charity shop, and then in another charity shop I found a set more. Never read any. Read this one, really liked it. Maigret has been exiled from Paris. I don't know what he's done because I haven't read the previous book. To head up the police force in this small town. One day this woman comes, she said her and her husband were pruning the tree in their garden. They looked through the judge's window, who owns the house behind them, and there's a dead body on the floor. They didn't realise it was a dead body to start with until it was there for a couple of days, and now they know it's definitely dead. Would he come and investigate? And investigate he does. And to start with, he catches the judge trying to drag said dead body out of the house and tip it into a high tide. Maigret ingratiates himself with the local populace, and the judge is very amenable, but he doesn't know who the guy is, he says, the dead guy. He just found him in a room near his daughter's bedroom, and his daughter has problems. I think mental problems. And thought he'd better get rid of it. So this is Maigret's search for who the corpse actually is, who's responsible for killing it, and what role has the judge played in all this. I loved it. I'm glad I bought lots because I can read some more. There are 75 books in the Maigret series, and so that counts as long-running series on the bingo board. Next up, Ed McBain, The Gutter and the Grave. I've read, this one is a Matt Cordell book, and Matt Cordell was a detective, then turned private eye. He was married. He comes home and finds his wife in flagrante with a guy who works for him, beats this guy to an absolute pulp, and loses his wife and also his PI license. So he is then just a drunk and a drifter. Anyway, a friend of his comes and says he has a problem with stuff being taken from his till. Would he have a look into it? And he's in partnership with another bloke. And after a lot of arguing, Cordell agrees to go and have a look at this shop. And when they get to the shop, they find his partner dead, shot. And above him in chalk are written the initials of Cordell's friend. So Cordell decides that the best way to cope with this is not to tell the police he was there. His friend will get arrested and probably won't get bail, but that will protect him while Cordell searches for the killer. But then his friend's wife is killed as well, and it couldn't have been his friend because his friend's in jail. So that puts a bit of a spanner in the works. It's good fun. I share a birthday with Ed McBain. In fact, I share a birthday with Ed McBain, Mario Puzo, and P.G. Woodhouse, which is fun. I like Ed McBain, but that's not his real name. So this one's going down under the pseudonym box on the bingo card. Finally, for physical books, we have My Lord Vampire by Debbie Raleigh. This was one of the ones that was sent to me by Roy, as was the Manhattan Massacre. Vampires have hidden themselves behind a veil. They no longer suck the blood of humans. They no longer just go out and kill people. They live a very contented life behind this magical veil. The veil is protected by a medallion, and there is a threat to the medallion. So, what's she called? This old gypsy woman who turns out to be like head honcho vampire, whose name I can't remember. Anyway, she divides the medallion into 3, and she gives each of the 3 pieces to 3 different humans, the other side of the veil, and enchants them so that they can't be taken from them. They must be given freely. Then a couple of rebel vampires go through the veil to try and get them, piece them back together, and let vampires do crazy things in the human world again. And our hero, in fact 3 of them, but our hero is sent through the veil to try and stop them. So this is interesting. Gideon is our hero, and our heroine is actually called Sally, but she's masquerading as her half-sister, Simone Gilbert. It's set, I think it's set in the Georgian era. There are a lot of carriages and dances, and I'm pretty sure it's set in the Georgian era. I really enjoyed that. It actually had a story to it, which I thought it was quite good fun. That is my sexy vamp. Right, on to the ebooks. What have I done with it? Oh. I tried to read this. It was hideous. I DNF'd it. Instead, I read this, which is about worms. Killer worms. Killer worms that start off in the sewers, but then progress to all the waterways in England, and they grow, and they're not very nice, and they eat people. And I thought it was really good fun. Slither by John Halkin is my killer animal book. Off we go. Next up, conspiracy theories. Ooh. The World's Strangest Forgotten Conspiracy Theories by Conrad Bauer. This was okay. I mean, it was a bit dull, to be honest. It trundled out a number of well-known conspiracy theories, like the moon landings, like AIDS was manufactured by humans as a genetic weapon. There was one that I wasn't aware of about the Pope and the Emperor of Rome conspiring to remove 300 years of history. So the years between, I can't remember. But it was early Middle Ages. And they wanted to get closer to the year 1000. So it was about 300 years up until, I think it was 927, were just made up. All the history of all the countries in the whole world, they just made up their history. So people like Charlemagne, for example, don't exist, didn't ever exist. It was silly. Yeah, I didn't think much of that one, really. But that is my conspiracy theory box. Crossed off. And I do believe that's it. So, where we are at the moment is I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've only got 7 prompts on the bingo card left to go. Next week is sex or violence. I intend to do both, but I am going to keep the sex on a level that doesn't make me feel sick like last week's did. And also the violence, I'm going to keep that on a regular level as well. The Instagram prompt is for favourite trashy book or author. And the bingo prompts I still have to do are ninjas, nudity on the cover, 3D movie or a step back cover. Roy sent me one of those as well. Modern trash, an exclamation mark in the title, moral panic, and a giallo or slasher. I'm going to go for giallo because I like giallo, and I don't want to read books I don't like, basically. So that's my garbage week. What have you been reading? Are you taking part in GarbAugust? For the most part, I really enjoyed the books I read this week, unlike last week where most of them were hideous. So I've had a good week. I will tell you about the books I am reading that aren't GarbAugust related tomorrow, if you fancy popping back and saying hi. Leave me a comment and let me know what you're reading if you're taking part in GarbAugust. It's a lot of fun. So I hope you are. Anyway, that's it for me for now. Like and subscribe if you'd like to. Leave a comment. Tell me how your week's gone. And I will speak to you tomorrow. Bye-bye for now.